there's veins in there. And so once you get to the combustion section, you're going to pull these two side pipes off, and you can look up in there with a light. You'll see that in there. But just so you know, that's what that's all about. I should also tell you, this is a filter here. So this is a big filter, and why would they have a filter on the compressor air? Look to see where it goes back. Anybody?
Any debris?
What's that?
Any debris that's in the air.
Any debris that's in the air. So this thing's going to pick up all kinds.
Is that my question?
No. That wasn't even a bonus question. Let me go get a little water. I'm starting to get a little hoarse here.
Went for it.
Went for gold.
Just what Dad you found get a harder one. Where's the filter?
What is the material of the third stage motor when he asked me blade meter?
What?
Is that?
Yeah, that's the filter.
It was like page 7
Well, that was good though. I'll remember that because what a great time it's coming. Johnson, right? Yeah. Okay, so so we're gonna just start here, and we're gonna go around this way, and we'll see how this works out. Some of you might not even get a question. I don't know. All right, so we'll start here with you.
Good enough. Close enough.
Did I say Yud? Yud? No. Okay, get up there, because you got to get up there and tell me what I want you to do is start, and I'll stop you. I'm not just cutting you off because I need to have some other questions here, so I'm going to stop you at a certain point. Tell me, and you believe it or not, I probably shouldn't say this, but I asked a guy one time, where does the air enter the engine?
I would say the inlet.
Okay, point to the inlet. Okay, good.
Bam.
All right, so you're already 100% ahead of that guy.
All right, that's
That guy stood there for probably 5 minutes, and we're all looking at each other like, what is going on here? You know? No, so you've already almost passed.
You know,
the class.
I watch pod racing, so we're good.
Okay. So
Pod
tell
racing.
Tell me how many stages of compression, axial compression, does this have? And point them out to me.
So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, cool. Now you can sit down. You're up. So we have a couple of clipped stages of blades in there. What's that all about? Can you tell me?
That's all about changing the resonance in these blades because at certain operating RPMs, operating whatever power settings, these blades were hitting a resonance where it would cause the blades to crack. And ingesting broken blades is not something this engine was designed for.
Yeah, it's not so good. Okay, you're done. You're up. So, show me on the inlet. Show me where the air goes in and where the air goes out for the, for the de-icing system.
De-icing system, the air comes in here.
Okay, and where?
And just sitting back here.
Okay,
And then it
where?
goes out.
Where and where?
What?
Is there two places it goes in or just one?
And down here.
Okay.
Comes in both sides, and
All
then
right.
it actually goes out through the back of the bearing housing, I believe. Or
Take a peek around. Look on the compressor where you can see the compressor. Look around the backside. You
Yeah,
see the
okay.
trailing edge of those supports there?
yeah, they all have holes in them.
They're perforated. Have you all seen those?
Yes.
Everybody seen it? I'm not gonna drop your grade or anything, but I want you to see that. That's so to have flow, it's got to have some place to go, right? And you could heat that thing up. You could just put air to it, but there'd be nothing flow through it unless it had a place to escape. So we just have it escape out the back of those veins there.
Lots of tiny perforations back there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, you're all done then. You jump back. So you're up, Ed. How is that, how do we de-ice the inlet on this thing?
What happened to the? Is
Lever, huh? Has you
Is-
guys got a lever, or did you
it,
get
yeah,
one?
we took it out.
Oh, okay.
So is the pilot control this lever? There's the poppet valves in here. It's open forward, closed backward.
Okay. And what happens there? What goes through that valve? Is it liquid or air or what?
No, it's heat, compressed air.
Compressed air? And so that air is gonna be hot or cold?
Hot.
Hot, okay. And then
This is
that
toggle it,
then
open
that
and
runs down to the fittings on that inlet there, okay. All right, so you're all done, you're off the hook. Oh, I should tell you guys, I heard Paul told me before he left this evening, he said that a couple of guys picked up some jobs with bowling their last semester here, so they're going up to, as soon as they finish here, Bello and
Havens, I think.
yeah, Havens. Both of them picked up jobs going up there, working in the. I think it's probably in the final assembly shakedown area. So they'll be working up there. They got to get their licenses. Everything is contingent on a license, but it's a good break for them. You need to buy some new pants.
You gotta get a job first.
Got to get a job first. Yeah. All right, so so we did the de-ice. Pull that fitting out. Right at, it's right about about the 11 o'clock position there. That's from the pilot's
This
chair.
guy?
No, the one on the inlet.
Oh, right.
Yeah, just spin that thing out of there. I had it started a while back. How many of you took that out? Any of you take it out and look at it? Okay, so what is that fitting for?
Oil
It's a oil to what?
to lube the bearing, to lube this bearing in the
Okay,
front
what
center.
do we call that bearing?
Sport bearing?
Okay, it's
Front-
compressor front support bearing,
Front support bearing.
or
Rotor bearing.
we number the bearings in the number
one.
one. There you go. Okay, so we number the bearings, and they'll go all the way from most turbine engines number the bearings. Some of them call them out by what they are and the location, but most of them also call them out the number one support bearing or something. Okay, so pass that on. You got it out. You answered my question there.
Okay.
Yeah. Look through that. Through that thing. So the bearings up in the front end of this thing are pretty dinky. They're pretty small, and that rotor runs at a pretty high rate of speed. What is it about that fitting that is kind of unusual? We're going to start getting into troubleshooting here. Just a minute here.
Is there usually like a ball in here? Like a little.
Not so much. Not so much.
Sure.
Are you talking in terms of like velocity versus pressure?
Of the air.
Yeah. Or not the air, but the oil goes in.
So it's a little dinky bearing. Do you think we need a lot of oil in there?
No.
No, you don't need so much oil. Do you find it there? No? Okay. So that thing actually does a couple things. One, we have in turbine engines, it's pretty common to have a last chance filter. Okay, because if you got some debris go through there and it ends up in the bearing, what's that gonna do to the bearing?
Chew it up.
Probably tear it up, because like I say, it's a real dinky bearing. Can you see through it?
No,
Just hold it up and look at it. Can you see through it?
I can't see through it.
Good, that's a screen. This means the screen is still in there. It says a last chance screen. So, how many PSI, Sam, how many PSI does this engine have, oil pressure?
115 to 300.
What is it?
115 to 300.
Close enough, yeah, 115, 120, somewhere in there. Where do we set the oil pressure up on this thing? This one will count.
This one will count
This one will count.
at 130.
Okay, where do we set it? Do you have any idea?
No.
This is like a bonus question, really. Okay, so, yeah, so we set about, it ranges between 110, 115, 120, somewhere in that range. 130, maybe some of the bigger engines. but we set it right up on top. There's an oil pressure regulating valve up on the top of the engine up there. And you may not even have it in this one here. But if you go back and look at yours, yeah, you're gonna find there's a valve that's underneath that cap. So under that cap is gonna be a screen, and right next to it is the oil pressure regulating valve right there. So it's just so you all know. So, so that's a lot of oil pressure for such a dinky bearing. Okay, so you got the last chance thing. I kind of gave that one to you, so I'm not going to give you another one. No, yeah, I will. I'll give you another one. So, so what else? Because we have that last chance screen in that fitting. Because you see all those other fittings, they're just straight through. You can look through them. Heck, you can throw a cat through some of those fittings there. But this one here, you can't even see through it. What feature about that fitting is going to regulate the flow of oil to that bearing? Remembering, we got a big suction on the front of this thing, right?
So like it's like a pressure relief valve. So it's
No,
like,
but you're close. You're right there. They make what they call restrictors. Have you ever heard of those?
like an
Anybody?
orifice.
Restricted orifice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use that restricted orifice to cut down the flow of oil to that bearing, because we don't need all that oil up there. That pump will put out plenty of oil, and at a high pressure. But now let me ask you this: so this one will get you off the hook. I'll keep you here on the hot seat for just a minute. So if this engine, if it starts to spray oil out the back of that bearing housing, where is that oil going to go?
It would go in here, and
Yep.
it just wants air through there. So
Yeah, it's going to go right through the engine. Yep. So what's a symptom? What's a symptom of that going to be?
For oil going.
Yeah, if oil going into the compressor. So you're off the hook there. What would the people, the maintenance people, so you're standing there eating your sandwich, you're watching this guy fly this airplane, all of a sudden you see something happening with the engine, and it tells you that the engine is ingesting oil. Smoke, exactly right. Yeah, be smoke coming out the back. Now, there's a couple different kind of smoke here. You have black smoke and blue smoke, right? So this is even while this is still synthetic oil that we use in these engines, you're going to see a kind of a bluish smoke come out of this. If it was fuel, what color would it be? Black, because it's over rich. Yeah, it's not burning all the fuel. Ordinarily, the exhaust comes out of here is pretty darn clean.
Can that do damage to the burning oil? Does
Why
it do
don't
any
you
damage?
tell
at all?
me? So let's talk about that. We'll kick it around here in a few minutes, and this is kind of where I was going with this. So that oil is going downstream. It's going to go through the centrifugal compressor. It's going to end up in those pipes. It's going to go down to the combustor, and because we've got smoke coming out, that means that we're burning it, right?
Yeah.
So what would a worst case scenario be if you had oil going through the engine?
Oil gets too hot, and then
Yeah.
it does damage to the aluminum.
Well, that too. What would so you're standing back and you're watching this thing, and it goes from blue smoke to the next step. What would that be?
To black smoke? Is that what you're saying? I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Anybody?
Fire?
Yeah, you
Right.
could have fire coming out that pipe if you had too much oil going through the engine. Now, again, we use synthetic oils on this, so the temperature's going to have to be significantly higher to get it to set on fire. But it will catch fire. Yeah, make no doubt about it. So so yeah, and it's going to go through. It's going to coat everything as it goes through, and at least initially, it's going to be all over the turbine. It's going to be spitting it out the pipe. The pipe will be full of sooty material, and it just makes a giant mess. You can see how clean that pipe is there. Ordinarily, that's kind of a film, kind of a grayish black film in there. It's from the fuel being burned, but ordinarily it's fairly clean in there. But if it's kind of sooty and thick in there, you know it's passing oil through it. And you have to remember that compressor is, while it's compressing air, it's sucking a lot of air through. It's creating a big depression in the front to get all that air to go into it. And so anything that's in the front, June bug, flies, your wrench, any of that stuff's going to go right through it. Okay. Not yours. Good. Okay. Okay, so we got 6 stages of compression. Just from a got you're up. 6 stages of axial flow compression.
Yes, sir.
What's the 7th stage that we got here?
7, that would be the centrifugal
Okay.
compressor.
And explain to me briefly how that works, based on what you know so far.
Pretty much just slows down the speed of the velocity and then accelerates it.
Accelerates it, yeah. So we're talking about speed there, right? Speed and velocity, it's the same thing. So yeah, it's just speeding that air up and it's throwing it out. And when it throws it out, where's it going to go?
Goes to the anti-ice.
Well, that's one of the places it's going to go. It could go there. But where is it, generally speaking, in the engine going to go?
It goes back in these.
Ultimately, but right after it's flung off the compressor wheel, where is it going to go? Remember I was talking about a torus?
This bend right here.
No, not the elbow. Not the elbow. Help him out, Mr. Manalisco.
After rolls off the,
If it comes off the compressor wheel, where's it going to go?
goes through to the
No,
combustion section.
the next step that it's going to take. Remember, we're trying to create high pressure here, and so we get a high velocity coming off that wheel, right? And so the next place it's got to go to get a high pressure, turn into high pressure, where is that going to be? The diffuser, yeah, the torus, yeah, exactly right. So it's going to diffuse in that area there. It's going to get bigger. It's a bigger space is where it's going into. Also, the other thing too is before we start on the combustion chamber, look at that pipe as it goes down the side there. What's it doing? So it's going from this big around to this big around. What's going to happen there? Pressure's going to go up or down? Pressure's going to go up, okay. And then and you haven't seen the inside of that combustion chamber yet, but inside the combustion chamber, it just gets
Bigger.
you get it bigger and bigger, yeah. So we're going to be building pressure all the way to the back of this engine here. Okay. So, we have less. So redeem yourself. Tell me how the bleed valve works on this thing. First of all, where's it at?
It's right here.
Okay.
It's
They got one laying here if you want to pick it up.
spring loaded.
To what position?
So open.
Open? Okay. And why is that?
Because you want to build up pressure for it to close when you're starting the engine.
So it wouldn't build as quick, right?
Right.
Remember, we got to have some place for it to go to have flow, right? And so we allow it, as the compressor builds speed, it's dumping it overboard. And Mr. Mansell, you go ahead and pick that thing up there. So the valve is open. We've got this thing up. It's starting to come up to speed. What's the valve going to do? What causes it to do that?
The pressure from the valve behind it forces the, when it reaches a certain tension, it forces the speed.
Okay, good.
Closing the valve.
So it's going to close the valve, right? And where does that muscle come from to do that?
The compressed air from the compressor.
Okay. You're right there.
axial flow
Yeah, you're right there. Good. Okay, so what location on the engine does it come from? Some of these engines didn't have a lot of plumbing on it, so if you didn't have much plumbing, you wouldn't know that probably. That's it. That's it exactly. Yeah. That's that little line that kind of goes up and over and then swings back down over to that. Everybody understand that? Yeah. So what's the next thing that's going to happen? Why would we have a bleed valve in there? We have it for starting, but what is the other thing that it's there for?
For anti-icing.
No. What's the other reason? Remember we talked about compressor stalls real quick? When we get to compressors, we're gonna talk about that a little bit more. So let's say that let's say the pressure gets too high in the back of that compressor, and then there's a low pressure area follows it. So what that would mean is that maybe it ingested something, like a bird, and it'd be like this low pressure air bubble going through the compressor from one end to the other. The burner section would sense that. What would the effect of that be? If all of a sudden it sensed a low pressure.
Backfire, right?
Backfire?
Yeah.
We call them compressor stalls.
Compressor stalls.
Yeah, if you're working on 52 Chevys or something, they backfire. Right. So that's going to it's going to try to kick it forward, right?
Yeah.
So if let's say that that you're motoring along, the engine is making a lot of power, and you all of a sudden dump the throttle on it for whatever reason, and we don't want all that air pressure in the back of the compressor because it's got too much now. What do we do? What does that bleed valve sense?
Senses the
You're out of turn, but go ahead.
it senses the overpressure, and so it doesn't stall out. It'll open up the
Opens the
air
bleed valve, yeah, and dumps that air out of the compressor. So that thing will go like that. It isn't going to just go open real slow and then close again.
Now, when it dumps it, does it just dump it out?
Yeah, in this case, it just dumps it
Or can you actually
overboard.
just use it for something else?
No, in this case, it just dumps it overboard.
Because
Yeah,
it's only emergencies only.
yeah, it's just, and it happens so quick.
Would you
Now,
hear it?
there's an S2. The Navy used the S2, right? You ever hear those things, the Vikings?
How many flies?
Yeah, probably not. Used to be able to hear them a lot. And what they would do is they'd fly up the bay, landing at North Island, and you'd hear this whoop, whoop. Any of you ever hear that? Some of you have. You're old enough to have heard that. And what that was is that was a bleed valve opening. So every time they'd reduce the throttle another notch, they'd have to do something with that compressor air. And so the engine would just dump it overboard, and that's what you were hearing. Now, a lot of engines use what they call a bleed band, and it's like a belt that fits around the compressor, and there's holes drilled in the casing, and this belt fits around it, and there's an actuator that pushes that belt loose or pulls it tight, and so it acts just like this. It's just a little different configuration, so it'll let air off the compressor and allow that compressor to spool back up again. If you get too much air, it kind of chokes the compressor a little bit, and it doesn't want to turn.
I see.
So there you are. Now I got to get you off the hot seat here. So hand this half of this compressor over to him. So tell me what you see inside there. I haven't looked at this yet. Do you see anything, any cracks or anything in there? And what lines that shell?
What do you mean, what lines are?
Yeah. So remember I talked about the inlet tonight. How the inlet will scrape sometimes and has an abradable liner.
Yes, there's cracks. I forgot the material.
Okay. What does it look like? What does it look like?
Cracks or the
No, the material.
Carbon?
Not carbon. It's just plastic. Thermosetting plastic, yeah. What they do is, because those blades are attached to the case, there'll be a real son of a gun to try to put that plastic in there, paint it in there, or mold it in there. So what they do is they drop it in there and then centrifugally cast it so this thing is spinning and curing the plastic at the same time. Can you fix it? Is it repairable?
Great.
This one, I don't think so.
Anybody?
It has cracks going.
Anybody read about a repair? Yeah, there's a repair for it. So what they'll do is they'll chip all that plastic out of there, and then they'll recast that plastic inside.
What keeps it from getting onto the stator?
On the stator? Well, that is the stator there, but what the centrifugal force is what pushes it out against the case. This little fixture they put it in to keep it square on the ends.
They probably made both halves to do that.
What's that?
Did you take both halves to do that?
Yeah, they put the two halves together. Yeah.
You have to replace, if one half is broken, you have to repair both.
No, because they know how much plastic to put in there, and it's self-leveling inside, and so they'll put it in with another half. It may be a tooling half, but they know exactly how much to put in. That doesn't turn, so it's stationary. Yeah.
That's the stator set.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here, Mr. Kennedy, you're kind of next. Starting to run out of questions here. Some of you might have got lucky. Let me think a minute. Oh, the oil system on the bearing. Show me where, so the oil goes in, right? To have flow, it's got to have some place to go.
Comes in from the top,
Okay,
and then it goes down and it greases the bearing right here.
Okay.
And it goes down to the scump.
drains out the 6 o'clock position then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Dig out the lines. Whose engine is this? Dig out the lines for that. The 2 oil lines. That looks like, that might be them.
It's air.
Yeah,
This is it.
that looks like them. Why are there 2 different size lines there, would you guess?
Would
So you got a 3/16 line and a 1/4 inch line there.
would be one like pressure wise? Would it one be
Which one would be the pressure line?
the
Little one or the big one?
big one?
The little
No,
one.
is it the little one?
You got a 50-50 shot.
Can I use a lifeline?
True or false? False. True.
So what's your reasoning for a big one or a small one?
My reasoning for
Yeah, why would the pressure line be big, or why would it be small? Why would the scavenge line be big, or why would it be small? Now this is something you'll find in a lot of turbine engines, maybe even a few reciprocating engines. There'd be some differences.
I'm not sure.
Could it be that
I'm sneezing a
could it
lot.
be that there's a pressure difference from high to low?
Yeah.
Well, that's-
Okay. So there's a delta between the 2 pressures.
Yeah. So one is
So we're going to pump oil into the bearing, and then it's going to drain out and go back to the sump, right? So let's think about that for a second. So which way is it easier to move oil? Is it easier where there's pressure involved? Yeah, can you get away with a little line or a big line, or do you need a big line to? And remember, that's just a little dinky bearing there. So I'll let you sort that one out.
Would you need for
And what happens in the bearing compartment when that thing's flinging around up in there? What happens to the oil?
Heats up.
Heats up? What else?
lubricates everything.
It lubricates
Getting
it?
thin
What else?
too, right?
Somebody
Getting thin, right?
Scavenge.
starts to froth a little bit, right? So think at it from this angle. So you all been down to the beach, you all been swimming, and so you jump in the water, and the waves falls down, pummels you, and you're swimming, but it's all white water around you and foam and stuff. How well do you swim in that water? Not so good. How about when it's all green or blue water? You'll swim in it pretty good, right? You don't go to the beach? Okay. All right. So the air is going to mix into the oil. In this case, it mixes into the water. So which one is going to flow the best under pressure?
One without the air.
The one without the air? Would you agree with it? Yeah, so it could be the smaller one, right? So we need a smaller line. We don't need as big a line, so we're trying to save weight, and also the needs of the engine is we just don't need a big line to do this, so we can get away with a little lighter, smaller line. But now we have this frothy oil, or we have this oil that has been foamed, and remember, we got air up there, right? We've got this anti-ice air, we've got heat, we've got all this RPM going on, and so we've got this frothy oil coming out at the 6 o'clock there, out of the bottom. There's some pressure on it because we're pressurizing that cylinder, or that bearing compartment, but it's coming out a little bit foamy, and we're going to pick that oil up. It's going to go back to the gear case, back to the oil pump or the oil supply. So we would need a bigger line, would you guess?
Yes.
To allow free
to allow
flow.
time for it to go
Yep.
back to.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So you all understand that? So it's easier to pump oil than it is to suck it. Right? So we put a little pressure behind it and we're forcing it through the bearing housing, and there's going to be a little bit of push behind it, but it's going to be frothy oil and it's not going to want to move real well because of all the air that's been added to it. So if we dump a cup of oil through that bearing, we're going to end up with a cup and a half of oil going back because of the air that's been added to it. So we need to have a bigger capacity for it to run back to the gear case. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Cool. You're off the hook.
Put it right here.
Let's see here. I've probably got some more questions. I don't know what the heck they'd be. So we'll stop there. A couple of you got a free ride. It's okay. I'm looking to see
Do
who
you
you are.
do we